EUMINT project was funded by Interreg Italia-Austria program. Ever since 2018, researchers have been busy trying to develop tools and strategies aiming at facilitating social and work integration for asylum seekers and refugees in the mountain and rural areas.
Refugees and asylum seekers have been the protagonists of the EUMINT project. This is the reason why we wanted to invite here in Bolzano Susan Abulhawa, a writer and an activist from Palestine. She's the daughter of refugees who left the occupied territories in Palestine during the Six-Day War. Susan should have reached us here in Bolzano in February, but she couldn't do this because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the reason why we asked her some questions on the conditions of refugees in the Middle East and the 2 days impact of COVID-19 in a video interview.
Yes, it is somewhat personal. Forced dislocation and exile and displacement and being disinherited is spiritually traumatic, especially when it occurs without being surrounded by your family or others who share that trauma. And it also means that your inner self speaks a language and inhabits a culture that doesn't match the world that surrounds you. And so there's a constant kind of inner tension, and the necessary adaptation to that means that you lose pieces of yourself. And it does indeed become a very lonely experience, but not a debilitating one, just a sort of experience. Israel has often forced Palestinians to live under prolonged periods of lockdown. And as a result, Palestinians have adapted and created skills and measures to contend with that kind of forced isolation. And that doesn't mean that Palestinians are okay with it or that they don't suffer from it. It just means that they have mechanisms and skills that maybe aren't present in other parts of the world who haven't had to deal with a military occupation like Israel. And frankly, to Palestinians, Israel has been a far worse virus than anything the world is seeing with COVID in terms of its deadliness and the fear and insecurity that it provokes. For example, during the first Intifada and also in the second Intifada, Palestinians were placed under long curfews and all the schools were closed and things like that. So Palestinians created mechanisms to ensure that people took care of each other, that there was food sharing, that children got schooling in the homes. Initially the rate was really low in Palestine, and they had actually done a remarkable job of containing COVID. But it seems that measures have relaxed a bit, and being in such close proximity to Israel, which continues to have an extremely high rate of infection. So I think it has kind of, COVID has indeed taken a foothold in Palestinian territories as well, like everywhere else. Playgrounds for Palestine recently sent out a letter to our donors asking if we could divert some of our funds to emergency COVID relief to Palestinian families. And the response was overwhelmingly affirmative. And we sent $30,000 to a village called Tura, which used to be an agricultural village, lots of farmlands and very old farming families. Unfortunately, Israel has confiscated, stolen most of those farmlands, and so the previous farmers have been forced to work as day laborers in Israel. And with the shutdown of COVID, it meant that most breadwinners lost their jobs and families have been left with no income. And so we together with the village council, we devised a way to a kind of scale to distribute those funds and at least provide them with some relief. And we're doing the same thing in cooperation with UNRWA now, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugee Relief. And it's a Band-Aid, of course, but we hope it's at least providing some relief. I don't know what the sentiments are like in Europe, but here in the United States, I think there's more than one United States, to be honest. There's the United States of capitalism and colonialism, and there's also the United States of resistance, of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and people of struggle. So I would say, with the latter, COVID has provided a kind of the perfect conditions to merge with the collective discontent and pain of people who have been terrorized in this country for 400 years since they landed here on slave ships. I'm afraid the former, however, have not really learned much from this experience, sadly. I think in general they're oblivious and even disdainful of migrants and refugees, and it's sad to say that this condition of collective insecurity and fear surrounding the pandemic has not really cultivated a sense of collective empathy. So the answer to that is twofold. I mean, there are clear signs that of revolution, very inspiring, hopeful collective actions, rebellions that are happening across this country. And on the other hand, there's an anti-force. There's a kind of anti-revolutionary, anti-empathy, pro-war force that has also showed its head in very forcefully as well as a result of COVID.